are back for another episode of the Sacramental Charismatic, and I am your host, Luke Geraty, and I am joined today by a great friend, great leader, mega church worship leader, pastor. I'm going to keep making things up, James. I'm sorry.
Keep going.
Yeah. Brilliant thinker. He knows everything. But anyway, James Moscardini. Is that
Nailed it?
Did I do it right? Yeah.
Nailed it.
So anyway, James is a pastor at the North Phoenix Vineyard Church with Brian Anderson. A lot of people in the Vineyard probably know Brian Anderson. National leader for a long time. Successful church planter, great leader. But I met James. We're going to hear your story in a minute here, but I met you, I think it was in like 2016. And I think it's because our church had grown like massively, and we were failing in every area as possible. And I think you were the one who were like, hey, why don't you come out here for this big church conference we've got going on? And I was like, what are you talking about? And you're like, oh, there's a secret conference that's happening in the Vineyard that's only the big churches. Is that kind of?
I think I remember that.
I feel like that's what happened.
And you did come, and it was a good conference.
I brought 2 staff members. It was the best conference. I mean, I actually, to this day, I tell people all the time, like, it was the best helpful conference I've ever been to in the Vineyard. Rich Nathan, Brian Anderson, given all the secret, well, not really so much secret. Now it's like, oh, there's actually great books on this stuff too, but none of us got any of that training in the Vineyard about systems and preaching calendars and leading staff and developing teams and dealing with money and casting vision. I mean, it was phenomenal. But James, you've been in the U.S. for how long now? Because you're originally from England.
That's right. I've been in Phoenix for 15 years now. I moved here in 2010, and in my childhood, I actually grew up in North Carolina from the age of like 4 to the age of 10. So I've officially crossed the line of I've been in America longer than I've been in England.
Yeah. And you came here and have been on staff at North Phoenix Vineyard the whole time, essentially, correct?
Yeah. I came over here first as an intern in 2009, and after that they offered me a position just as like a administrative assistant, and just kind of just stuck around like a bad smell.
Yeah.
They felt sorry for me. They were like, well, we'll keep him around.
Well, the nice thing about James is the reason why I think we connected. I was like, James has a good sense of humor. He doesn't take himself too seriously.
No way.
So I can hang out with this guy. Yeah. Well, we're going to spend some time today talking about a number of topics, and I'm really super grateful that you're willing to come on because, like I said, I've been at your guys' church before. I've seen the fruit. I've benefited tremendously in our local church from a lot of the things that I've gotten passed on to me. But we're going to talk about, church systems and processes and building teams and what it's like scaling discipleship models and, having equipping classes and just all those type of things. Gen Z, social media, we have a whole bunch of things, but I'd love to know, like, how did you come to faith and then what brought you into the Vineyard?
Yes, so I am OG Vineyard my whole life. I was born into the Vineyard I was born in the 80s, so I was a baby, but we were attending Riverside Vineyard in the UK. And then when we moved to North Carolina, we were a part of a church called Triangle Vineyard, which I think is now Holly Springs Vineyard, kind of like in the outside of Raleigh area.
Okay.
And then we moved back to the UK because my parents felt called to plant a Vineyard church. So my dad still leads that church in kind of like the Wokingham Crowthorne area, which is kind of like south. It's in between like Reading and London. So it's kind of just like in my blood. It's in my DNA. It's the only church tradition that I've really spent any extended time with. So for all its warts and quirks, I still love the Vineyard because it's, it's my family. It's kind of like the
Yeah.
family business,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting for those of us who have grown up in the Vineyard and seen so many things.
So, so yeah, so many things. And especially because the Vineyard touches like so many different parts of the like greater Christendom. So I've had the opportunity to hang out with Anglican dudes who love the Vineyard, and also like super wacky charismatic dudes who also love the Vineyard.
Yeah.
And I think even now, like, people underestimate within the Vineyard how much impact the Vineyard has had on the wider church, and people still draw from a lot of those. They may not necessarily be able to correlate it directly, but I think the wider church still draws massively from Wimber and Vineyard Worship.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a super fair. It's funny. I've been reaching out to a number of some of my favorite theologians the last couple of weeks and scheduling podcast episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because every time they're like, oh yeah, when I was in college in Chicago, I went to Steve Nicholson's church,
Yes.
and they went there for like 4 years. Or another guy, a church historian, was sharing with me when he was doing his MDiv, he was going to a Baptist church that had Wimber come in and was basically, he was like, yeah, we had become basically a Vineyard church. We just didn't have the name, but we were doing everything. Like Wimber was our coach, and we were, yeah, it was pretty cool. I was like, oh, sweet, man. And then they're always like, what's going on in the Vineyard now? I'm like, so would you like to come on my podcast?
Everything's great.
Nothing to see here. Yeah. So you grew up, when did you come to faith? How old were you when you like made a conscious decision to kind of move towards following Jesus?
I was probably like, 7 or 8. I remember being water baptized around that age. I remember really starting to, I have always loved to read. So reading through the Bible, having those sorts of questions with my mum, like really understanding, oh, there's something that I need. And it's Jesus. And then, working through that as a kid and a teenager, and finally as an adult. So I wouldn't say that I don't have like a dramatic come to faith story. I have the benefit of a gracious, long lasting experience of God's faithfulness through my life. I'm super grateful for that. I've been guilty in the past of being like, I wish I had an explosive testimony to tell people.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know what? I've got to walk with Jesus for like most of my life, and I think that's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it's funny how when you're younger, I feel like by yourself, you're like, oh man, I wish I had a testimony where I was like on the mean streets. I was in the gang life, but then you have your own kids though. And you're like, I hope my kids don't have any testimonies. I hope they
exactly. Exactly.
Like, yeah, that's cool. So really, I mean, you coming into the Vineyard was by proxy of growing up in the Vineyard, and it was just always there in a sense. Like you were there every Sunday and probably during the week.
Yeah, I mean, like when COVID hit, that was like the first time I'd missed church like 2 weeks in a row.
How'd that feel? Don't lie. Was it nice?
Oh, I'll be honest with you. I was running all of the back end on online stuff, so it was super stressful.
So it's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, James, let me just let you in on the secret of what it's like out there in the real world, where not mega church world, is every senior pastor was running all of the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So we don't feel bad for you at all.
I don't want you to feel bad for me.
Yeah. Well, we don't, just to be very clear. Yeah. So that's pretty much your kind of your journey. So when did you figure out that, I guess, Wimber And I mean, because in the UK, Vineyard's influence amongst, Anglicanism and New Wine, the New Wine
Hmm.
network is still to this day very, very large. When did you kind of start like, oh, this is like bigger than maybe I realized? Did you have a moment like that?
I don't. I think it was more like the opposite. I think because I had grown up in Vineyard, I was just kind of assumed like this was how people like do things. These are the values that people have. And then even going to New Wine, it feeling very Vineyard.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, which is when I would have been attending, Trent, they ran Tent 2. So it was the Trent Worship Band and Vineyard speakers. So it probably wasn't really until I came to America and like as an adult got to experience like different streams and different thoughts. Because some of the stuff, just like what's baked into American theology, is like super different to what I grew up with in the UK. So that's when I was kind of like, oh, like the Vineyard is less universal than I
Mm,
was was prepared for. Um,
yeah. Interesting. So in the US, I mean, I think one could argue there's like five kind of streams in the Vineyard, or five types of Vineyard
hmm.
churches. There's the Signs and Wonders folks, or like maybe I'd say like classic Vineyard, that are kind of like worship and Signs and Wonders, and that stream. And then you definitely have folks that were like super into the prophetic. Maybe like today they'd be really influenced by, Bethel and those type of churches. Then you've got like the kindness evangelism, the relational evangelism folks
Hmm.
from the Cincinnati influence. There's like these different like types of vineyard churches, because like I'm sure you've traveled enough now where it's like you go to a vineyard in the US and you don't know what you're going to get until
Yeah,
you're there. Or if I'll go to churches, I'm like, oh, I already know. Like, well, I've watched
this
them
is one of those.
online.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and sometimes not always. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, leaving that away. Like in the UK, I've only been to maybe 10 to 12 vineyard churches over there, so I can't say I have like a really
Hmm.
broad, 100. I think there's 125 plus churches or something like that. Is it not as diverse there, or is it more like what's the vibe over there?
Yeah, I would, in my experience, it is not as diverse as it is over here in the States. There's a lot, even from how some of the like national leadership stuff is run. There's a sense of homogeneity in terms of values, like service structure, even down to branding. I know that, in the US, it used to have to be, fellowship, whatever. But
Yeah.
I think in the UK, like you got to use the logo and all this other stuff, which honestly, personally, I'm in favor of some more consistent branding. That's
Me as well.
that's a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
but
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 wouldn't you agree though that part of that though, I mean, I would say this though, my caveat, I'm all for consistent branding. I think it would be helpful, but let's also have consistent church because
amen.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of times there's some churches I've been to. I'm like, could you take the logo off? It's actually hurting our church.
it's
Like it's not helping.
it can be difficult recommending a vineyard church to someone
Yeah.
who is like who's been part of our church and is going to whatever city or town and being like, hey, so there's a vineyard in Red Bluff. Should I check it out? I'm like,
Yeah. You're
I don't
like, I know you
know.
say no. We've had people come through. They're like, oh, I'm from Phoenix. I was told not to come here. I'm like, bro, what up
Yeah,
with that? Like, who said that? They're like, James. I'm like, oh, that makes
it's like
sense.
like it smells like fish over here. I think
Yeah.
it was the senior pastor.
Fair, fair. I will not respond to that. You're trying to bait me, but yeah. I mean that's interesting. So in the U, because that's kind of my observation too. That, and I don't think that's just the UK. I mean, I've seen that in like probably 6 different countries I've been to. You know, for me, to this day, I think the healthiest AVC I've ever seen in my life was in New Zealand, you know,
Mm.
like, and I think, and I don't want to minimize, like, I don't know how you wrangle the cats in the US. I would never,
Yeah,
ever in a
seriously.
million years ever want to be a part of any of that craziness. But it was interesting. I mean, for one thing, you can have every pastor in the room. You know, they don't have 500 plus churches. You know,
Mhm.
there was like maybe 150 people, you know, in this meeting. And, you know, but I just felt like you just saw a lot of health, a lot of the same practices. And for me, it's always been kind of like my core thing you know, for health, church health. It's like, get back to core practices, you know, like there are certain things that every vineyard should be doing no matter what. Like, doesn't matter if you're in Manhattan or if you're in the sticks in Texas. Like, these are the things that we do, you know? So, yeah. So that's kind of interesting. So for you, it was like you came to America and welcome.
Yeah, I was like,
We
wow,
yeah.
there's a lot of ideas here.
Okay. Moving on. We're not gonna feed into that. Okay. So I guess let's do this. You know, and when my primary, you know, when I first started talking to you about coming on, and I really had to promise you so many things because you were like, no, I'm too busy, make a church pastor.
Yeah,
Um, but you know, like I really do want to say some things about your church context. I mean, I know a lot of mega churches get a lot of hate. You know, there's something in like culture and society that just has this kind of negative bent sometimes. And, you know, some of that's earned for sure. And there's
yeah,
definitely a lot of nonsense, but I mean, I could point out to 500. If the average size church is under 65, I think there's way more churches that are under, you know, 65 that are, you know, dysfunctional and unhealthy too, if we're just going to be statistically accurate. But you know, what I've seen in your guys' congregation, again, first, you know, going there and spending, I think we were there for a week, you know, with two of my staff members, and just learning about how do you scale. And that might seem like a foreign concept in church world for some people, but it's like, okay, our church went from 35 people to like 400 people, and then to five, you know, we were just growing really quickly. And
hmm
like I felt like in fact, what had happened is like we would create a way to communicate with everybody. We had a comms plan. And then it was like, you know, a month and a half later, that comms plan didn't work anymore, you know, like at
right.
all. And it was through reading like organizational health experts and coming to understand that I think like one expert had said every time your church grows or your organization grows by like 20 to 25%, you have to change everything the way you do it, you know.
Mm.
And it was like it was at your church's you know, conference that I first got kind of presented with some really clear specifics, I guess, because I had heard, you know, like breaking the 200 barrier. I had heard some of those things that Stetzer and others had
Sure.
done, but it was done so well, and then seeing seeing the quality, not just excellence. What actually, you know, the thing about your church that really impressed me the most is actually a Brian story. You know, like Brian I don't know Brian really well at all. I've kind of just been a fan from outside, you know, but I used to run into him at the MLM Vineyard conference, and I had met him one time. Like that's it. And it was like, you know, like, hi, I'm Luke. You know, that's it. Like nothing. And like I was thinking I was washing my hands or something, and he's like, "Hey, Luke, how are you?" And I was like, who? How do you know who I am?" And
Yeah.
then he's like, "Oh, your dad was just out in Phoenix." I'm like, "How do you know who my dad is? Like, what is going on?" You know, and then he had shared a story about how I think like Saturday afternoons he spends time going with a notebook of people's
hmm
names, just praying for people in the church. And I was like, I don't I don't know if there's a better example of a, you know, mega church pastor out there in regard to like that, because it was so different than my expectations of driving around in a Mercedes Benz and having somebody write the sermon for you and you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Then you
um
go give your TED talk and people pay you.
Yeah, I mean, like, it sounds awesome. Sign me up. I mean, I would like that, but so I've seen kind of firsthand how the systems work, and I guess what I want to ask you some questions about that is just to say that if there's people listening or watching this that are in small churches, it could be 65 people, it could be 100 people, it could be 1,000 people. Systems and processes are the way that we serve people, and you and I both are very committed to the presence and power of the Holy Spirit. We want all of that to happen, but
Absolutely.
it's hard for that to happen if you don't have good systems in place to maintain momentum and to create spaces for people to do that. So I guess I'd like to just know, like, to start off with, what do you think are the most important systems in a healthy church and also a growing church?
So what really helps me to kind of like categorize everything is that like churches, if it's a coin, there's two sides to it, and one side is ministry and the other side is business. And not business in terms of like, your cold, like corporate, whatever. But there are realities to running a church that is business-like. You have insurance. There are legalities. If you have staff members, how much do you pay them? How do you get money to pay them? How do you keep your staff happy and motivated when they're probably underpaid compared to like similar fields just because we're a nonprofit? So one of the things that has been really helpful in recent years that we've done that I think has promoted a lot of health in our organization uh, is having a pretty hard distinction between what's a pastor and what's a manager.
Mm,
Because one of the mistakes that I had witnessed is that we in church land think of as a leader as a pastor. So pastors get promoted up the organizational chain, and we don't check for spiritual gifts such as
hmm.
administration or people who are
Yeah.
very detail oriented. Um, so we made the switch in the last few years to very clearly say that um, being a pastor is a calling and not a vocation. So even our salary structure, you couldn't like the pastors had to be paid the most. So we literally like put a ceiling on anyone competent joining our organization who wasn't called to be a pastor,
Mm,
which really hindered us. Now we have like super talented people that help our organization and our church exist who are like accountants or you know um who are great directors or managers, and you would never
hmm.
put them in front of people because that's
Yeah.
just not their gifting. And
Yeah.
they would say
Ju-
that they'd be like, don't put me
yeah.
on stage,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. That's funny.
But like I
Mm.
think sometimes in church land, like we really undervalue those other spiritual gifts
Hmm.
that help stuff to work. Um,
Yeah.
because like as you know, it's a lot of work just preparing your weekend message. And then you've got to deal with all the other ministry things. Um, and it takes a very special type of person who can be both ministry and business minded. And if we scale by giving away things, then I think that the best thing we can do is find those areas that we're not good at and hire or recruit volunteers into those areas.
Yeah. And I mean, that seems like that is just it's being consistent, right? In the sense of like trying to identify people's giftings and putting them
Yes.
in places and roles that they can use their gifts to serve, towards the mission of the church. So that's it. That's interesting that, that distinction, I think does help, um, help clarify roles a bit too. And it gives people freedom I think to develop, and then also to like not have the pressure of like I have to do a sermon if I'm going to be on a pastor here, like the
Yeah, right.
executive pastor.
Like I have to work every Sunday,
Yeah, yeah,
or I've got to do weddings and funerals and
yeah,
that sort
yeah,
of thing.
yeah. That's helpful. So like, but what do you feel like are, so like you're kind of setting up organizationally, there's some structure. And we
Hmm.
actually, maybe we can talk more about structures in a moment here, but like what do you feel like, for for healthy and growing, like for those two, because there's a lot of healthy churches out there that aren't growing, although I
Yeah.
would argue maybe not as healthy. And
Hmm.
then there's a lot of growing churches that are maybe it has the appearance of health, but also not no discipleship happening, or like what are the systems that you feel like are crucial for those two things to kind of like happen?
Obviously, it's multifaceted. Um, for me, I think the most important thing is to have unity in vision, and we have certain things in place that helps us to maintain what that vision is. Um, so, we have a model that has we basically put on a spreadsheet like everything that our church does, and then it's something I give my dad all the credit for this. He's like a smart business guy.
Mm,
But there's something called a business capability model,
hmm.
and it's basically, on the far left we put vision, and we say, in this bucket is everything that the senior pastor of our church has been essentially told by God to do. Um, it's really important that we talk about like roles, not personnel, because you can get in trouble with doing personnel. So we will annually we'll go through with our leadership team. Hey, here's the vision. This is what we're trying to move towards, and then everything that we do links back to the vision, from the
Mm,
coffee, from the kids ministry, from the person who runs the pro presenter. We can link back how that person is helping us to achieve the vision that God has given to our senior pastor. Like you
mm.
may have heard this story of this reporter visiting um, like NASA in Houston, and he sees mission control and all this, and he goes to use the restroom, and there's a like a janitorial guy in there, and he says to the janitor, he goes, "Hey, what's your job around here?" The janitor says, "I help to put people on the moon."
Yeah.
It's like having that alignment of vision from the very top of the organization all the way down. Like that is the way that I think that you can. It's not necessarily a system of growth or health, but that's the place to start.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. So would you say then that identifying, because in that model, I guess, there's a pretty big contingency on the senior leader there, right? Like, you have to have a lot of vision and, because one thing that I've noticed about, one of, there's many distinctions between like, I'd say cream of the crop, mega church pastor, like I've never met a mega church pastor person who's not very visionary, like a lot of vision, like dreams big and, but that's not every pastor I've met, like, and then there's also other ecclesiological models. Like there might not be a senior pastor. There might be like three or a board or whatever, like, do you guys feel like, coming back? Cause I think like when people talk about systems, a lot of times I think, like there's a lot of churches that don't have, really strong hospitality ministry
Hmm.
or welcoming or, like whatever that would be. There's a number of things too, and like I've been to a lot of churches that I've helped do some coaching for, and it's like, hey, like I've said this before, it's like if you just tweaked, 3 to 5 things, it would make a huge difference, because like you can't not have some type of a hospitality welcoming minute. Like it just doesn't work, because you will see exponential impact from just making someone feel welcomed. Like it's
Hmm.
crazy, like they've said it to us like for, 10 years now. It's like, I just feel like you guys taking 2 or 3 times during the service to welcome us makes me feel like I'm valued, like, well, how do you put a price on that? Right. It literally takes 2 seconds to do. Like, why wouldn't you do it? So I'm curious, like, when you look at your church, I mean, like, would you say like, I'm just curious, like, as from your perspective, like, is the music being good, preaching being good, kids ministry being good, like driving Uber for drunk people on Friday night ministry that you started recently? Maybe I'm inspiring you right now. What do
Yeah,
you feel? Because you guys have a pretty big food pantry ministry, I think, too. Like, what are
yeah,
some of those things that
huge.
have really helped you guys, be? Because what I see is in a lot of those ministries that you do, because I watch your guys' social media stuff,
Hmm.
discipleship's happening in them,
Yeah,
right? It's not just let's go do something to help someone. It's like there's relationships forming and discipleship's happening, and then evangelism's happening too. Like, do you feel like there's a couple things that you think are like non-negotiables? You should not be a church unless you have this.
yeah. The number one reason that people come back to our church is our kids ministry.
Mm.
Like we get like we contact everyone who's like a first time guest, and like consistently like in that report is my kids had a great time. We can't wait to come back. My kid can't wait to go back to church. So I think that having like a really great kids ministry. I mean, this is obviously like your preaching, your worship, your weekend experience has to be at a certain level of competence. But I think having a great kids ministry and having a clear pathway to get involved, I think those are two of the biggest, like, of our most important systems in terms of um like what we were talking about. Once people like we run uh like a course, I guess it's a 3-week course called Growth Track, which was created out of Church of the Highlands, and its whole premise is it's just 3 weeks. The first week is like how to get connected at our church, give some history of the church. The second week is like a spiritual gifts test, and then the third week is an opportunity for people to get involved somewhere in our church. Because once you get involved, now you have someone who can disciple you. Because I guess part of scaling is, the senior pastor can't personally disciple. What is it? More than 100 people, 60 to 100 people.
12. I like Jesus's model.
I love
12.
that. There you go. um, so who is going to disciple them?
Yeah.
So yeah, like small groups help. Um, but most of the time, people like don't want to come to church and then have to go to a stranger's house for the very first time. But once they figure out, the way that God has designed them and wired them, like when I teach this class, you can see like people, they start getting like super excited, when we're talking about, hey, this is what God has actually created you for, and you can see that that resonates with them, and we're like, hey, this now you can start doing that, and then they're like, oh, I can. And now you're in a place where not only are you um getting to execute the things that God has created you for, the way that resonates with you. But now you also have a leader that can check in on you,
Mm.
that can, um, I call it, I stole this as well, called protect, connect, grow, where
Mm.
like every leader um, prays for everyone on their team by name every single day. That's protect. Connect is they connect with them like regularly, like once a quarter, once a month. Not a text message check in, but a connect. and that they would know the next step for every person that they lead.
Mm.
And that's kind of like exponential. So you have a free coffee team, and they have a leader who is in charge of the free coffee team, and that leader protects, connects, grows their team. And then maybe you have a first impressions coordinator who's in charge of the different free coffee teams. And again, then the coordinator has a pastor. So that's one of the ways that we can get people plugged in and really start to disciple them. Because
Okay.
the way that people grow is different. Like it might be giving, it might be being water baptized, it might be some sort of addiction that they're struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really difficult for us to find out if I think not just mega churches, but any church that's over 100 people, like it's really easy just to come and then leave and never
Yeah.
get plugged in any way. And then how are you going to get discipled, and how are you going to experience like a rich walk with Jesus?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense a lot, actually. I mean, that's kind of like closing the back door, or like Steve Nicholson talks about the retention, the retention aspect.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what systems did you guys have to unlearn? Because as your sizes grow, things have to change, and you have to do
Hmm.
things differently, which means you need to stop doing things a certain way. Has there been anything that you can remember that you're like, we need to unlearn that? That's not that's not helping us.
I think one of the things organizationally that we've had to unlearn is like putting people in roles to fill a gap.
Mm,
Like, well, we've got this ministry and we've always had this ministry. Who's got some time on their hands? Oh, youth pastor guy does. Well, now you're a youth pastor and you also run our
yeah.
post-service lunch. And like, there's always going to be in ministry, like there's always going to be something that doesn't quite align with who you are and your calling and your gifting. But I think we had gotten to the point where some of the stuff that like everyone's roles had become so convoluted, um,
Yeah.
that we were becoming inefficient and becoming ineffective.
Mm,
If I'm
yeah. Yeah.
youth guy and also oversee women's ministry for some reason, it was just like, what's happening here? Like my
Hmm.
role is, if your like title is a paragraph, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. That seems like a challenge for sure, because I think, on the other hand, for a long time it was like, just hire a specialist for every single role. And
Hmm.
then the church, leadership kind of went through the whole like have like, because a lot of our leaders are doing multiple, they do multiple things, but we
Of
also work
course.
really hard not to like, oh, like it's not like, hey, just put another thing on too, right? So there's such a tension with that challenge. But yeah, I mean, I feel like most pastors would agree that one of the things that they're trying to constantly unlearn and remember is not to put people in roles too quickly, or who aren't gifted, or
Yeah.
who aren't called, or who, like
Or like, do
I
we need this ministry,
yeah, yeah,
or is it just something that we've always done,
yeah, that's
and now we're
good.
just going to
Yeah,
add it to
constantly
someone's plate?
evaluate. Yeah, that makes sense. That's good. Yeah. With developing, so you came over as intern guy
Yep.
and then became admin guy.
Admin James.
Um, yeah, and then you eventually became worship superstar.
No, after that, I became a pastor, just like a like assistant pastor guy, where my main role was helping with worship and like communications.
Hmm.
And then I became worship superstar guy.
Okay.
Like,
You
not
said it, bro. I was just wanting you. That's going to be the clip. That's the clip right there. Boom.
clip it.
Clipping it.
Chat, is this aura?
Yeah, it's happening right now. Um,
Reluctantly, because I it's not something that I love to do. I'm very shy.
mm, okay.
Um, and now I head up Um, just, just like we were talking about, I head up discipleship, young adults, and communication.
Yeah, yeah. I went from being this to this.
Yeah.
That's yeah. So what you're trying to do is send a message. Brian,
Yeah,
don't give
CC
him any
Brian.
more. Yeah. I have a direct connection right now to Brian. I guess what was it like? What's it like developing and leading and maintaining teams within, that environment? Like, I what are some of the things that you've done to be able to get new volunteers and to train volunteers and to maintain, those people's lives and souls?
I mean, one of the main aspects is like the relational side of things. Probably my biggest surprise when I finally became like when I was like, okay, I feel really confidently now that God is calling me to ministry and even pastoral ministry is like the relational aspect is so important, and
Mm,
the amount of time that takes. Like you have to be intentional about all of these connections that I'm making with my team. Um, when I say my team, like my volunteers, because otherwise, like you can just get really. For me, the biggest danger is I just get head down, and I become super productive, and then I forget that other people exist.
mm,
So I still have to be super intentional about uh, reaching out to people, asking deeper questions than "Are you good, bro?" Making sure that I know, like, hey, what's everyone on my team's next spiritual step, so that I can disciple them, making sure that they're in small group. Um, so that for me was the biggest adjustment. And then also getting used to not doing as much in terms of just like the day-to-day grind, becoming comfortable with giving stuff away, even if it's not going to
mm,
be like quote as good.
mhm,
Because when anyone who's been around church for a while, that it's super easy just to, you know, we joke about the mega church thing, but this is the only church I've ever gone to that's had its own building. So like
mm,
I grew up in cafeterias and town halls and school halls and all that. So I've been there at 6 a.m. setting up the sound PA and then leading worship and then helping to set up lunch for the newcomers meeting and all that stuff. Um, and I remember times just being like, you know what, I'll just like if you just let me take care of everything, like I know it's going to get done. And then now I'm the bottleneck to our growth.
yeah. Yeah, that probably deserves, a long, hard, thought for most people who are in senior leadership, roles, because I think, most of the time, I mean, I had done this, I think I had kinda read a number of books about constant, like, church growth, barriers being related to the leaders. It's
Yeah.
like, interesting, right? And so, when I was, traveling and helping some churches out, I had designed this, like, evaluation, tool, and I'd have church leaderships, like, fill out all their ministries and then rate the quality of the ministry on a scale of 1 to 10, and
Yeah.
then talk about who is the leader of it. And it was really interesting because, like, 99% of the time, all of the lower quality ones were the senior pastor doing it,
Nice.
right? And it was like, yeah, it was like, obviously the bottleneck in the system most of the time it was like for churches that were trying to break the 75 to 100 barrier, because that's kind of when it starts to get like, dude, you can't
Yeah.
do it all anymore, right? And it's hard because it's like your baby, and I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think we are our own worst enemies a lot of times when it comes to growth, because we're the stalemate, we're the bottleneck, we're preventing, growth, we're preventing development, we're developing, we stop the new systems from kind of rising, because we're like, no, I have to have my fingerprints all over it, So
Yeah. Well,
that's really helpful.
but I wanted to add, like, um, even in health and growth, the danger to overcorrection can lead you to having too many doers and not enough makers.
Uh,
So that is something that I'm currently trying to swing the pendulum back on, is that I've created a bunch of people who are really good at following my instructions,
mm-hmm.
but I have to think of everything. So, like, how do I now
Interesting.
encourage people? Like, hey, I need to scale my making as well as just doing.
Mm.
So I think as we grow, and as we grow, we talk about like leadership development, and we're only going to be as good as the leaders in our church. Making sure that, hey, there's some space for people who are really good at thinking, and I don't have to be the
Yeah.
only like thought creative generator.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I'm at right now with that.
Yeah. That's good to know. It's like you're always, I think the takeaway for a lot of people should be like, you never stop tinkering.
Yeah,
I had this idea when I first became a lead pastor. I thought that I was like, all right, for the next 2 years, we're going to build the system, get it all oiled. And then in 2 years, once we complete that, we finish that, we cross that finish line, everything is going to be good. Like we won't have to ever do it again, and it's like,
yes,
you know,
we've got it. We've
and,
got the strategy.
yeah. And in reality, it's like, no matter what season you're in, you're always tinkering, you're always having to adjust, and you're always having to, the pandemic was a good visual, everybody had to make a huge adjustment if they were going to keep on serving people. Right. Because it's like, all of a sudden, the whole world had changed. So
Well, like,
what is,
what is
oh,
something
good.
that you just recently tinkered with or adjusted?
Well, my wife just went on a leave of absence as of on Sunday, and so we've, like, the last 2 months we've been like leading up to that. Just my wife and I were co-leading together, and so there, like, I have my things I do, and then she has all of the things that she's responsible for. She does way more work than me. There's no doubt, and
Yeah,
so
because you're lazy.
you said it. I didn't deny it. I want to be very
She DM'd
clear.
me. She's like, make sure to leave
Yeah.
remind, like, he's
Yeah.
lazy.
Yeah. Are you on a chat with her right now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do the
Yeah,
dishes, Luke.
exactly. Yeah. 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 Hey, I did those once. I'll leave it at that. No, just kidding. Yeah, I think it was, the tinkering right now has been a lot about teams and identifying people who are stepping in to fill some of those roles and to lead some of the teams that she was directly involved in, and so we're doing a lot of
Mm,
organizational tinkering right now
yeah.
for that purpose. I am by nature a tinkerer though. Like I've always, this is bad probably. Someday I'll probably come to the conclusion that my life of ministry was all a mistake. But
Oh,
I am a I
we
look
already know that.
yeah, it's pretty true. I look at ecclesiology as one of the words I would describe is experimental. I just think, there's a lot of experimenting that goes on in our local church, where it's like,
Yeah.
let's try this, and we're always adapting new thing, trying to learn from as many people around us that are sane and that are
Yeah.
trustworthy and that are
Yeah.
faithful. So I think organizationally, we're in the process right now. Our big tinkering is we're going to be starting a big church-wide campaign in February about getting more volunteers and more opportunities for people to serve. And so a lot of it's about casting vision, how to do that well, to tie it to the mission of the church, and just really wanting to be specific about like, what are the next steps, right? That's like one of the big questions that people have. Like, well, what do I do now? Like, okay, you got me, like, I want to follow this Jesus person, I want to do this, discipleship thing. I don't know what that
Yeah.
means, so like, it's like when you go to when I go to Los Angeles to visit my oldest daughter lives down in Orange County, and I'm driving on the highway, and I'm like, thank God for for Apple Maps because it can get me there. But it is
Yeah.
quite living in a very small town, like all the on ramps and off ramps, and it's like really overwhelming. And I think that one thing I've learned from the mega church world is that generally speaking, larger churches do a lot better job of being explicitly clear about what are the next steps. There's no
Yeah.
question. Like, these are the 3 things you do. Like whether it's, I mean, it could be as simple as fill out a Connect card, go to
Mm-hmm.
this spot, come on this day, or, whatever it is. It's not like, I mean, I'm going to be very critical right now. I apologize right now. No, I don't. But I cannot
It's like,
stand I cannot stand the whole like go to a church and it's like 10 minutes of announcements. No one's listening to you after a minute and a half. Like, and that might even be generous right there. So when it's just like long 10-minute long barrage of information that we're supposed to
yeah.
remember, like it's too much. And so I think for us, that's kind of been a big thing, is thinking through the specifics about like, what's the process, like when somebody comes up and says, hey, I play guitar, how do I get involved? Like, I want to be able to have a good answer rather than, like, well, at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, we have
Yeah.
rehearsals,
Yeah, just swing by, talk to Jack.
Yeah, exactly right there.
Yeah, we
so.
have like, that's something that we very consciously, like, when it comes to our announcements, like we do a video and it's like a minute and a half.
Yep.
And it's just, these are the 3 most important things you need to know about.
Yep.
And we took it away from like a dude with a coffee standing up there rambling through, like, what was I supposed to talk about?
Yeah. And I mean, and James, you and I both, because I am a firm believer in video announcement. Like I am anti. I will go on record as saying I am you are sinning. No, I'm going all the way. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, to flesh that out as to why do a lot of churches use video announcements is because I think number one, it is super easy to do in this day and age with this thing right here. If that's the only thing you have, you don't have to have a Sony A7, for you could have literally an iPhone. You can get, really decent, those, the little mics that you can, magnetize. I can't, whichever ones I have,
like
DJIs,
DJI, Rode do a great one.
Totally. Yeah. Those things are like, you're going to spend a couple $100. Quality of the audio is going to be fine. You can edit. If you only have a MacBook and you don't have Final Cut Pro or Premiere, you can literally just use, iMovie. But the reality is that you can control the script and you can get the relevant information and not have somebody on the stage for 10 minutes. Cause I mean, like everywhere I go, the announcements are, I time it. It's like a thing where it's like, I'm just curious, like, how long is this going to be? And they average between 6 to 10 minutes. And it is a lot of,
Yeah.
So I just think, like, and I know in our situations, we've got multiple services like you guys do too. So part of it is like,
Got to get the kids ministry out.
And also reality, so our church is still charismatic, James. So like,
What's
we
that?
still want to have, I know, I'm going to let you know, we want to have ministry time, and you guys, I watch your guys' videos and you guys go from your sermon into ministry time. Like, I would much rather have extra time for that rather than having somebody who's, now it's like, it's not that there aren't some people who can do it live. Well, there are, but it's such a small number of people, that can do it consistently. And I still think the nice thing about the video is that you can do things to keep people's attentions, with the
B-roll, graphics, animations.
Totally. Yep. Animations. Yeah. So I'm glad that I got that off my chest. I've been holding that really close forever. I feel better now, James.
Let's just take a breath for a second.
This feels like a spiritual direction session, James. Thank you.
This is a holy moment.
Yeah. But I mean, do you agree? I mean, is that like,
yeah,
because that's 100%. Just my personal, okay.
Yeah. Live announcements are a sin. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's we could end the whole the whole
That's it.
podcast
That
talking
was the
to it too.
podcast.
Okay. I do have a couple more questions though.
Yeah, go ahead.
With discipleship and
hmm
equipping, your church has, I mean, I think you guys have over 5,000 people on a Sunday. You've got thousands of people who are either following Jesus for a long time, because I know I've met people in your church who are like, I remember when Brian first showed up from, like, and then you've got I don't know if that's true. They didn't talk like that, but I'm sorry, that was mean. But you got people who've been around for a long time. You got people who are not followers of Jesus. I mean, you are constantly having an influx. Um, how does discipleship happen in your context, and what does it look like to train them? Like I'm going to ask a very Vineyard question. Like, do people learn how to pray for the sick? Do they know the 5-step prayer model? Things like that.
Yeah, so this is where we have kind of a whole curriculum this is something that I've been working on in the last couple of years, and I am definitely still in tinkering mode. I don't know if I'll ever stop tinkering. But like you said, there's this tension of water baptized over 500 people last year. They know nothing about anything. They don't know who Jesus is. I was chatting to a guy just last weekend. We had a water baptism service, and I was like, "Hey, so how long you been coming to the Vineyard?" He's like, "Oh man, someone brought me on Christmas Eve. I did the altar call, and I just got water baptized because that's just what they told me I needed to do." He's been coming to church for 3 weeks. So how do we disciple those people? And then also, like you were saying, how do we engage the people who have been coming for 20, 30 years? So this is where kind of classes, small groups, and curriculums come in. I think the number one place still for discipleship to happen is in small groups. I still really believe in small groups. I think that is the only place we say that you're going to find freedom. That's the place where you're going to finally trust someone enough to say to them, "Hey, here's what's actually going on in my life. I actually struggle with anxiety. My mum is sick. Could you pray for me?" That's never going to happen in the same way in a class or on a Sunday morning. Even with Vineyard ministry time, there's got to be a place where you can trust someone enough to take off your mask so that they can minister to you, really minister to you. So yeah, I totally believe in small groups. And then we have a class that we're just about to start for the first time in February called Starting Point. And it's basically like the first 6 sessions of Alpha. So it's for people who have just been water baptized or just made a commitment to Jesus. And it's like, who is Jesus? Why did Jesus die? Who is the Holy Spirit? How do I pray? How do I read the Bible? How does God guide me? I think those are the 6 sessions that we're doing.
Well, that's cool. So it's kind of like what Christians ought to believe type of.
Yeah. Which is a great
yeah.
book too.
Yeah, it's a great book.
And then we created a midweek curriculum, and that's for our more seasoned Christians. So we're doing a Lent program starting February 18th, where running up to Easter every week, we're going to go through a different facet of Lent, which ends in a Good Friday service, which then we get to celebrate in Easter.
Yeah.
In the fall, we do we call it Hard Questions of Faith. And that's more of a seminary level, lecture series where
who does that at your church?
So I do that.
Obviously you have nobody that could potentially do that.
So ChatGPT takes that course.
Yeah. Nice.
So I teach that along with our executive pastor, Marty Kaiser. He takes, and we go into the sessions are an hour long, and they are very as deep as you can get on a subject. We'll go into, I think last year we did topics the 4 different views on hell, We did Christian nationalism. We took an hour on that. Sexuality.
So you don't generally talk about topics that are pretty relevant for today's culture.
No, not really.
Yeah, just doing.
But like, because there's only so much you can teach on a Sunday morning to a diverse group of people. But this is marked like, hey, if some of the feedback we were getting was, well, like even statistically, like after 7 years, people start to think they've kind of explored everything in your church after 7 years. Now what's left for me? So we started to, like, obviously the Vineyard answer is the meat is in the streets. When's the last time you prayed for someone at the grocery store?
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, I thought that's what you did. Which then tells me, like, who's discipling you?
Yeah.
But also, like,
what small group do you go to? Let's talk about that. Yeah.
The hiking one.
Yeah.
But I kind of have this, I feel like this is from the Lord, of our church becoming like a place of education for our community. Like, unlike a lot of mega churches, we're in a very blue collar community. So it's a lot of plumbers, a lot of electricians, who haven't necessarily been given the opportunity to seek like deeper or higher education. And that's not a remark on how intelligent they are. It's just a remark on opportunity. So for us to become a place where people can like, hey, I'm never going to be able to do an MDiv, but you can receive like some much higher level teaching at church where like, hey, this is stuff that I see Mark Driscoll talk about on his little YouTube, but like, what does my church think about this?
Mm-hmm. Is Mark Driscoll close to you guys?
Yeah, he's about 30 minutes away.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll do that later on when we need to process.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. So just a lot of different spaces for, education. But also too, I guess you also have a lot of opportunities for serving. The meat is in the streets, type of thing. Discipleship.
And again,
tracks.
like you were saying, like having a really clear, like if you get water baptized, like you get a phone call from someone saying, hey, your next step is to take the starting point class.
Yeah.
So like making sure that there's not like 5 options. It's like this is your next step.
Yeah. You will be there.
Yeah. This is something you get to do.
Yeah. We've signed you up. We need your credit card right now.
Yeah.
Mega churches. I knew it. I knew it all along. Well, okay. So you guys, that is all interesting. I think because again, it's like you see for people looking on the outside in, you can see you guys are thoughtful in how you're building systems and pipelines and structures that can serve the mission of the church, not changing the mission to keep the structures. You guys have, demonstrated that quite a bit. But you guys have a pretty, I mean, there's not a lot. I'll be honest. Like when we first started, like, I hate TikTok personally. It's just me. I'm not I want Instagram to go back to photos. I'm a photo guy. But I've given up, and so like, I don't know. It's probably, we've always done video and we've always tried to stay pretty current with social media. There's not a lot of vineyards that are I guess consistent's one thing, but even on, when we first, started getting on these, with our church stuff, it's like, all right, well, let's just follow every Vineyard church.
Yeah.
Click. Okay, we got 8. There's a lot more on Instagram. Facebook's pretty decent, in some ways, but you guys have a pretty consistent TikTok presence and whatnot. Give me your strategy, like with social media, because and also make your case for it, because it still is shocking to me that there are vineyard, not even vineyard churches. It's still shocking to me that there are a lot of churches out there that have a Yellow Pages ad and are not using this crazy thing called social media that's essentially free that can reach literally millions of people if something pops, you know?
Yeah.
Why should churches do it?
Well,
Let's start there.
firstly, I credit you with our social media, because I remember
I
sitting in
want
a
a paycheck.
yeah.
I
So I remember sitting in a backyard with you and Wes after a conference session,
Oh,
and you guys were like, "Why don't you have like great social media?" And I'm thinking,
I
why
totally
don't we
forgot
have
about
great
that.
social media? So ever since that day, I've been like, we need to do this.
I totally forgot about that. Oh, I feel bad now because I remember the conversation. Wes and I were like, your guys' social media sucks.
Yeah, dude.
You have 6,000 people here. Shout out to Wes. Shout out to Wes. Okay, I do remember that.
Yeah, so that was like what I needed to hear.
Were you in charge? Because I don't even think we knew you were in charge of it. Were you in charge of it at that moment?
No one was in charge of it.
Well, that's probably the problem.
I think that led to me being in charge of it, because I was like, guys,
because then you said something.
Someone needs to do this.
Yeah.
Like, and then in classic Vineyard style, if you suggest it, now you're in charge of it.
Yeah, sounds like the Holy Spirit's on that.
Yeah. Here's my case for social media use.
I'm sorry. I just I totally forgotten about the backyard bonfire. Like,
yeah.
Oh man, I feel so bad. Okay.
So there I am. I'm in my mid-20s, been a pastor for 6 months. Big shot Luke Geraty and his little South African friend come along.
Oh my gosh, I've never laughed this hard on a podcast.
Your guys' social media sucks. I'm like, you know what? You're not wrong.
We had eaten a lot of food. I'm going to blame it on the food. Okay, so give us the sell. Why should?
Okay.
There's another James out there at another church. He wants to hear your opinion.
I have a lot of thoughts on this because I've given it a lot of time. But I think the number one sell is that social media is your newcomers class. Like, it is not your bulletin board. And I think a lot of people still see social media as a marketing tool for events that they have going on at their church. And it's not. People are not going to see your social media post and go to whatever event. What people are going to do is they're going to watch your social media for a few weeks so that they can pick up the vibe, learn who the pastor is, and then they're going to come and visit your church. And they already know everything that you are going to tell them in the newcomers class.
Yeah.
You know, like we were talking about our newcomers class recently, and I'm like, I've already read all this information on my phone, like as I'm driving to church on the morning, if I'm going to visit somewhere. It's like, when was the last time you went to a restaurant and you were like, I wonder what's on the menu?
Yeah.
Like, that just doesn't happen anymore. Like, we're all connected to a supercomputer. So my pitch is that, hey, this is the window into your church. This is the newcomers class. This is the way to communicate what's important and what's important to you, what God is doing at your church. One, why wouldn't you share the things that God is doing at your church?
Yeah.
And secondly, if you don't do it, like, someone else will. That's where Mark Driscoll comes in, because he's really, really good at social media.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
and when people have a question,
he's very good.
When people have a question about something and they type it into Google, does their local church community have an answer for them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the time, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would almost be willing to bet that 99.9% of people that come to our church have been following us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and they're because it's kind of weird, and you know this as a pastor, people will talk to you like they know you because they've
Yeah,
been
yeah, yeah,
watching all
yeah.
these videos with you, and you're like, I have no
Yeah.
idea who you are. Hi, I'm Luke, and they're like,
Yeah,
oh
or
yeah,
they'll ask you like a personal question that was just like an
yeah,
aside during a sermon. Hey,
yeah,
how
totally,
was the tacos last Tuesday? I'm like, what?
yeah, 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 exactly, yeah, yeah. So I mean but I mean going back to the cost benefit analysis, I think a lot of times, we do that with finances, but we also do it with time and
Hmm.
effort, and energy. And it just seems like, in today we have this cell phone that can
Yeah,
do 99.9% of everything that you could ever imagine on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. So it seems pretty, and with just so many, because I think for a long time, right? Like I had a little bit of a graphic background. Like I know how to do Illustrator and Photoshop. I knew, some basics of that. But now with Canva, I mean, just Canva alone, which will give you free pro accounts for nonprofits. So it doesn't cost you any money. Right
yeah,
there. Like, what are you doing? You can design all your reels, and it's also another way to get people involved because I know we're going to talk about Gen Z in a minute here, but I mean, we have a young woman in our church. She's 25, 26. All she does is like come up with Instagram reel ideas, and then she has a group of people that she shoots all these videos with, and then we schedule them out, and it's funny because she's got her own her own little leadership ministry group or whatever too.
it's awesome.
And every once in a while they'll talk me into doing something really stupid that I am embarrassed by and I don't want to do, but I'll do because I love her and she's passionate. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
so
even
it's,
with like you talk about like the cost benefit of like time, like what's the ROI? Like, I don't even think you need to do like edited reels or whatever.
yeah,
Like, I think you like it. Say you're like if you're a leader at a church, a small church, a growing church, whatever, and you have ideas about things, like, sorry, my phone is going off. There we
mega
go.
church pastor guys, this is what it's like being with the mega church pastor constantly all day long, getting phone calls, closing deals. He's
Yeah,
making
that's right. Sell,
investments
sell,
right
sell.
now. Yeah, yeah,
Like, if you have a thought about something, film that thought and post it.
yeah,
People want to know, and they want to hear from you as their pastor. Something that
yeah,
happened in the news cycle, film that thought and post it.
yeah,
Something that you read in the Bible, like just film that thought. People want to know. People want to be connect. It's a way to connect with people. It's a way to disciple them. It's a
yeah,
way for people who are visiting your church to be like, oh, this is who this guy is. I connect with that, or I don't connect with that.
yeah, yeah. It's
It's so
great.
easy.
Yeah, it's such a low hanging fruit, and I mean I do think that also too. It's like if Steve Nicholson talked about visibility on a podcast we just recorded. It's like one of the easiest way to become visible in our context is social media, right? Because
Hmm.
everybody's on it, and so it's like I can't remember who told me this is back when Facebook first started, and churches were getting on, and he's like, that's where the people are. You're like, why would you not be on it? It's like, oh, that's a
Yeah,
good
that
good
is
point. Yeah, so
like
that's good.
everyone is on social media.
Yeah. What have you guys, what has the Vineyard North Phoenix, what have you guys learned about digital ministry like post pandemic? Like, what have you seen change? Because you guys did the whole live stream thing, and you guys, there was definitely an uptick on that. I mean,
Yeah,
clearly some great coaching had gotten you guys out of the terrible social media. I mean,
yes,
great coaching,
that's
quality,
right.
very, very formative and empowering. The words I've heard used.
People tell me.
Some people have said Wes and we made a huge difference. But like what are the things that I guess like you've kind of learned just in the last couple of years? Like what are the trends that you see? I mean, you think it's just as simple as a pastor getting on, hey, I don't know if you saw on the news, or like this morning I was reading my Bible and what else?
um, I think the most important thing that I've noticed is just consistency.
Yeah,
like if you got to just keep, that is the only way that you're going to learn like what's connected with your community, and getting really comfortable with stuff not doing well on social media. Also knowing that like what constitutes as good changes all the time. Like the new trend is that people don't like posts.
Yeah.
So like it used to be like, well, this post got 100 likes, it did really well. Like now the new thing is like, how many views did it get? Like what was the reach? That sort of thing. So I would say like if you go into it with a plan, and that plan is like, hey, this is going to be my first point of contact with people in my community who either come to my church or don't come to my church. What do I want people to see? And so we try and keep the main thing. Like we will post sermon clips, and we really lean into our compassion ministry, and we really lean into water baptisms. That's what we show the most of on our social media.
Yeah. That's all I see on your social media is you guys
that's what we're about.
Yeah, because baptizing 5,000 people and then but the sermon clips. But you guys do a really good job of providing content for people, and like what I like about your current as compared to 10 years ago social media is but like you're doing it in bite-sized pieces that feeds the algorithm rather than fights the algorithm. And that's one of the things that I think people figuring out. You might even know Brady Shearer. I don't know if you're familiar with that guy. Yeah, like he's kind of a church growth consultant. I got something to sell you guy. Is what
his church isn't very big, but
yeah, like I don't know about that. I just know that but I think there's a lot of interesting things that he has to say about trends, and like, so I found it's not everything that he shares. I'm like, I buy into that completely, but I like the emphasis on constantly thinking and rethinking and following some of the trends and then deciding like which ones do we want to jump on, as far as like, because when Instagram moved away from, because it's interesting for us, talking about posts, if we do a post that's like an inspirational, like here's the Bible verse, whatever, some quote, like those ones are like 3 likes, but if we post pictures from our Sunday service, like 20 photos, people love those and they get like tons of reshares, and then the reels obviously, it will generally pop pretty good. But yeah, it seems like, like what you're saying is identifying the market, the people area, like where they're at, and then, consistency, right? Because I think that's what a lot of churches, they're like, oh, let's try this social media thing. And they post one time and then they're like, why didn't it work? Yeah. Why didn't it work? It's like, well, okay. Like I know here, we have been doing social media for 10 years consistently, nonstop. We've never, ever, and it's like, we can't, and I have done, I'm going to say this on record, I'm probably going to regret this later on, but on the Sundays, if we like have a week where we didn't really schedule really well, like we weren't maybe as consistent with our social media, I can see a difference in our attendance. Now,
interesting.
So the Baptist person is going to be like, well, that's because those disciples don't really love Jesus and they don't. It's like, cool. It's possibly true. But I think in some ways it's like we live in such a busy world and there's all these things vying for our attention, and it's easy to forget, things, I think. And especially we have a lot of new, new to the church world. Like they're still, you're right. They're being discipled. Like they are learning that, they're learning about formation and discipleship, And so I've seen a pretty consistent, not always, but a pretty consistent tie to like how engaged we are in social media with other areas of our church, for sure. Because I think they're more, as much as I still like mentally have a hard time buying into this as a Gen Xer, I think, is I think they're more integrated. I think the social media presence and our embodiment are potentially more integrated for a lot of people than we realize. Like that's we're behind the curve on that, a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, well, tell us about, let's wrap up with Gen Z, dude. Trends, hopes, challenges. What are you seeing? You're out there in the streets, man. You're like,
That's right.
you're doing it. You got the
Eating the
stash.
meat.
You got the stash to be able to really reach them. You know?
I think like what ties in with the social media conversation and Gen Z and even Gen Alpha is like authenticity is like such a huge value to them. And that's where like Gen Z is like deserting Instagram because Instagram feels so curated and so edited, and they love TikTok.
That's because it is. That's because it is.
Yeah,
it is.
And they love TikTok because it's like, hey, get ready with me while I tell you something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
So I think and I kind of feel like that's what Vineyard does really good, is being like, people, they say like just being real, like being like naturally supernatural. So I think potentially Vineyard already has a head start in authenticity, if we embrace it. Like I think that's a massive strength as we minister to like young people. We can even see with like the trend of like how Maverick City blew up with Gen Z by just gathering around a piano, and that's going to be the recorded worship.
Yeah.
That's really attractive to people who grew up in a face-tuned, curated like social media landscape. They're like, actually, we just kind of want to like come and learn about Jesus, and we want to learn how to do the stuff. I've seen a massive like return to that, like in some of our young adult services that we've been doing. It's like I've just gone back to basics on like Holy Spirit ministry and power evangelism, and they just eat it up because they've not this is like now where we have like found our niche as the Vineyard. Is you have your Mark Driscolls and you have your social media discipleship, but you don't have the mystery and the experiential side of faith when you're doom scrolling at 3 a.m. So when they come in and it's like, hey, let's just say like, let's do Come Holy Spirit, or let me teach you how to pray for people in literally 30 seconds. And then like, let's do that. That has been really effective and really attractive to people. And because you can like get a sense for it in the room, right? When you just see people's eyes light up, like, wait, I can do that too. You know, it's a tale as old as time in the Vineyard. And I think maybe we take it for granted.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
then
we've been doing
obviously,
it.
like
Been doing
the
it for
other
too
big,
long.
yeah, that's it. Oh,
Yeah.
God does miracles, boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then obviously the other really big topic is like mental health / loneliness. Like that is where kids are really struggling. Kids are really struggling with loneliness, and then depression and anxiety in particular.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the ways that we've been trying to lean into that, and part of that is like our young adult ministry is focused towards small groups rather than like a big like hype service. Because I feel like, especially in this day and age, kids are more isolated than ever. Like, because like I grew up playing video games, and the only way I could play video games with my friends is, we'd all go hang out on the couch together. We'd have to like bring our consoles over and like bring maybe extra TVs. People these days, it's like, well, you can never leave your bedroom. And so they're absolutely starved for like these relational experiences and authentic experiences, and asking questions in real time and having to think of an answer without Googling it. And I know that sounds kind of like silly, but like if you never leave your phone and you're always on your phone and you're always by yourself, like how often have you had to like answer something from your heart, from like the depths of your soul?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's where like we'll do like Lectio Divina has been really great for our like young adult small groups. It's like, hey, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to actually have to pause and like give God some space to talk to us and not just ask ChatGPT, what does this Bible verse mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like, it's interesting about that is the similarities between, I'm a Gen Xer, so that's why I might as well be a boomer in some ways. But there's a lot of things about the Gen X the Generation X that kind of relates to that too. That's why I've always kind of been like, because I'm a very end of Gen X. I was born in '79, and so like millennials were like, great, and there's a lot of things about authenticity that have always been like pretty important to me, vulnerability, and that's why I think that the vineyard, when we are who we should be,
Hmm.
and we are who we are, like we're perfectly designed for this moment, right?
Yeah.
Because you and I both know, as kids growing up in the vineyard, like we've had it beat into our heads: vulnerability before God,
Yeah.
authenticity, like there's these things that are core to our concept of discipleship and identity and formation that are like, that seem like they would do really well if we would just like live that out, and put it into practice, and then model it, and then cast vision for it too, right? Like you too can, you can be a part of this, and you can be who you are, in this moment. Do you feel like with the, I mean, I guess with the, what would be like, I guess, what do you think the church has to change? And in a sense, you're kind of talking about Lectio Divina, which is a very, liturgical, sacramental, ancient way of reading scripture. What do you think the church needs to change, or I guess additionally recover to faithfully reach and form Gen Z? What are we doing or not doing that needs to change?
I think that the church, like Big C church, or even we'll say, even I just speak to the vineyard as a context, um, like there seemed to be a period of time where the church was like, oh, we're like totally not a church. Like we're actually really cool. Like come visit.
Yeah,
Um, but I think that Gen Z and Gen Alpha, not I think, like statistically, they're much less liberal than
yeah,
we think they are. Just seeing who
yeah,
they vote for and seeing some of the
yeah.
things that they find attractive. Um, and I think that when it comes to authenticity, like they are very okay with us being like, hey, we are a church, and these are the things that God teaches us in the Bible, and this works, and it's worked for 2,000 years, and the church is not going to fail. It's the body and bride of Christ,
Hmm.
and we are welcoming you into this, and you can actually discover like purpose and meaning and experience like beyond your wildest dreams because you're going to connect with the one who made you and loves you.
Mm,
So
yeah,
just becoming like super comfortable again with just owning who we are,
yeah,
not trying like we're not going to like Gen Z, they can see through all the gimmick,
yeah.
you know. They're trained. They could tell when something's been photoshopped and glossed up and edited. Like they can tell when it's an AI post, if it's
Hmm.
AI slop. Like they're just not going to fall for that.
Yeah,
But what they will fall for is Jesus. So we just need to present him to them.
yeah. That's good. Yeah, I've only seen the same thing in our context. It's like the younger people coming. I mean, I think this is true about almost everybody under the age of 30. Like all my assumptions are like wrong. They're
Right.
like, I think if we changed our name to like St. Peter's Catholic Apostolic
But you'd probably blow up.
Episcopalian, yeah, like we would be just like, yeah, it is interesting because, like they're coming because they want the stability, and they want
Yeah.
the sacredness, which is, I
Hmm.
guess that kind of gets to, kind of closing, like sacramental theology for, it's like, being this sacramental charismatic of this, trying to blend together these traditions while still maintaining my missional evangelical,
Well, like we've talked a lot about systems,
yeah,
but they're really okay with mystery.
yeah, that's right.
And we've sometimes, us Western Christians have been like, well, if we put together this strategy, like people are gonna come.
That's right. Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, there's streams of the church that have embraced mystery for 2,000 years. In fact, they kind of started off that way. Like, that's something we can bring back.
I think it'd also be important for, I'm speaking specifically to like senior pastors or senior leadership team people too, is that I just don't think that, like, you need to make the sausage, and you need to have a recipe, and you need to have all the tools to be able to do it. But like, no one needs to know that. It's like, I wouldn't be like, hey, we're going to be doing a sermon series on this new system that we're putting, like, no one cares. 0%. I want to know, are you going to receive the Eucharist? Like, are you going to have a space where people can encounter the risen Christ through the power of the Holy Spirit? Like that matters to me, and so I'm curious, do you, in your mega church that has sold out, and doesn't believe the Bible and doesn't allow the Holy Spirit to come, do you guys celebrate, sorry, it's just so hard not to, James. It's so hard not
say
to.
No. Actually, no.
Yeah. How often do you receive communion?
We took church out of our name.
We're called The Gathering. Shots fired. Sorry, I couldn't help it. How often do you guys celebrate the Eucharist?
So we celebrate it at least once a month. Are you still with me? You froze with a very disappointed expression.
Hold on. There you go.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, this is a recent development. So let me talk you through it.
Yeah.
So we used to celebrate.
Yeah, you were Christians.
Used to celebrate it. We used to celebrate it every single week, and it was like self-serve and unintentional.
Okay.
And unguided and an afterthought.
Yeah.
Because that was the best way that we could think of to do it at scale.
Yeah.
And then we had a visiting pastor. It was Rich Nathan, and Brian asked him, hey, what do you think of church? Blah, blah, blah. And he was like, communion is just an afterthought. And we were like, man, he's right. So now, at the cost of doing it more frequently, we very intentionally.
Yeah.
Like Christians.
I got you. You said it, bro.
Got him.
Clip it.
We very intentionally receive communion together as a whole church family at the same time.
Yeah.
So people gather the elements as they come into the auditorium, and we say, hey, we're going to receive communion during this time. And then we do it in part of worship, and either the worship pastor or one of our pastors will come and lead people through that.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, somewhat in your defense, very slightly, not much. I had talked to Brian, I think back when I was writing the Vineyard booklet on communion. He had walked, I think I was like early in the morning. Does Brian wake up early? Is he an early morning guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was like I was at the MLM, so like most people sleep in until the last second or whatever, and I was like up early,
so they can miss worship but still get the good stuff.
Yeah, it's all about the talk. But he had walked in and he's like, oh, what are you working on? I was like, oh, I'm working on this booklet for communion, and he was like, oh yeah, and he started asking me questions about it, and I was like, this is mega church pastor, don't know no theology. What's he gonna ask? And he was, but he holds to the same. From what I understood, he holds to the same I guess largely influenced by Calvin's, his the Reformed spiritual presence view, which is the charismatic view, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
should be. So I was like, oh, look at you, mega church pastor. You stumbled upon a little article somewhere, huh? But no, I know he has a very high view of the Eucharist. There's no doubt about that. It's interesting hearing that Rich Nathan said that, because the one time I was at Columbus, I don't know if they do it, if they did it all the time, but I was so disappointed in the Eucharistic celebration.
Really?
I was just like, it felt like an afterthought in that mega, but I think it's because the large scalability, like there's a part of that it seems,
It's
think
hard
that's
to be like,
hard.
hey, there's
Yeah.
2,000 people in this room. Like, let's all stand up at the same time and go get a chunk of bread.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of that I just, I don't know how, because I'm not a fan of the little, the thing that we had to use during COVID either. So it's like, I want a cup, man. I'm a Christian, but but that's an interesting thing though, because I think you're looking at like God's, growing the church. You have new people coming in. Like, you're not going to tell them, like, I like stole from Steve Nicholson when we were growing a lot. We stole that Steve Nicholson. I think it was Steve. We're never going to put a sign on the front door that says, we're full, go to hell. Like, we're going to do our best to serve everybody, and we're going to scale as we, so it's like, I think it's easy for a church of, 350 or 400 or whatever we are, to be like, do it better, because we don't have 2,000 people in the room, Like I literally, dude, when I was walking on your campus the first time, I had a panic attack for Brian. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I don't even, like, walking around the auditorium. I was like, I saw the small group. The small groups it's bigger than our church. I was like, oh my gosh. So
I can't, the amount of pressure that guy has, I can't imagine.
But clearly connected, because I mean, he does not carry. I mean, he either is very, very good at being a fake person, which I don't think is true, or he carries it really well, because there's no anxiety. When I've talked to him, I'm like, do you know the least anxious guy I've talked to? Like, I would be having a panic attack in this moment right now, just thinking about what I might have to do in a month. Like, so,
well, I'll tell you this about Brian. If I was going to describe him in 3 words, it would be authentic, disciplined, and integrous.
Yeah.
Like, he is definitely like, what you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
And he is extremely disciplined. He is like, Thora has this teaching called, like, it's to do with like personal devotional time, about like the presence of no alternative. And it's like, there's just like, I just know, like, when it comes to his personal life with Jesus, that there is never an alternative to his devotional time.
Wow. That's awesome.
And so he's just, he is what you see. Like, he's that guy. He reads a folder that has people's faces in it so that he can know their names and wish them a happy birthday in the church lobby.
I'm a terrible pastor. That's what I always get whenever I hear stories about Brian. First time I ever saw Brian was him preaching. So there used to be a Vineyard Church down in Anaheim years ago, and he was there preaching. Yeah, no, nope. Keep going. I named John Wimber used to have leadership there before it was stolen.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I really appreciate your time. I want to ask you one last question before we bounce out.
Let's do it.
Mike Winger. You ever heard of Mike Winger?
Yeah.
He just put out a very long video on
it's like
Bethel
5.5
and the Charismatic.
hours.
I made it. I did watch about 2 hours of it. What are your first initial thoughts? As a mega church pastor, we want to know, what is it that you are thinking right now?
I need to watch it before I can comment on it.
There's nothing to clip there, buddy.
But I have been following, I think Jubilee, is that her name?
Yeah.
She's another one who's kind of exposed. I think it's Sean Bowles as.
Yeah, Sean Bowles, yeah.
I mean, the way that things have been going with IHOP and some of these other strains, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of what he says is true.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested to see what he says. I like some of his stuff. I don't always agree with his conclusions, and I don't think he does a good job of disguising his biases. I definitely massively disagree with him when it comes to women in leadership.
Massively. I'm with you with the massive. Like those conclusions are not good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like a lot of his
but I like some of his other stuff.
I think he's an ally though. You know, he's charismatic, first of all.
I think he genuinely wants to learn what the Bible says.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he genuinely wants to see the charismatic church get cleaned up, because we clearly have a massive amount of problems and abuses and systems and structures that are empowering people to be bad actors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've excused that behavior because of their gifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's another one of the Vineyard things, is always character before gifting.
Yeah.
So I'll give it a look, and then I'll post my thoughts to Facebook so people can tear me to shreds.
Good. I can't wait to read those comments. Well, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate, we don't hang out ever. It's been the one time we hung out, was so impactful for you.
Changed the trajectory of my vacation.
Yeah. But I will say, we've communicated pretty consistently on social media and always checking in. And I really appreciate your faithfulness. And, as a advocate and a fan from a distance, we've learned so much from your church and from you. And I really do feel like Brian Anderson is, he just has had a lot of influence in our lives just by proxy, because of all the stuff that he's done for the church at large. And, I know you've been very faithful in your local context. And so I just want to say thank you for that. You give me hope, man. You really do.
Brian Anderson, top 5 most underrated pastors. Yeah,
I think that's true. Although he has 6,000 people that go to his church,
that's fair.
Clearly, I just like to say, hey, underrated, maybe, not really. He's doing the stuff. So man, thanks for coming on.
Man. Thank you, Lee.
So everybody else, thanks for listening. Feel free to like, share, subscribe. I don't know, do all those social media things, check the clips, get the algorithm going. I don't know.
Let's go.
That's what it's called, but we'll talk to you later.
Get the algorithm going.